Hi Girl Scouts! My name's Molly. I'm the Program Director at Girl Scouts of Virginia's Skyline Council in Roanoke, Virginia. And today we're going to be earning a fun patch for baking at home by making fresh bagels, homemade bagels. So this is a really fun treat. It's an easy enough recipe to do, but it does have a few steps that take a little patience. So I hope you're excited to follow along. I'm going to start by going over my ingredients. I've got everything laid out. Bagels are really cool because they don't require a whole lot of ingredients, and they're actually vegan unless you add other stuff that is non-vegan into them, which is optional. So that's great if you have a requirement that you need a vegan recipe. This is a really easy one for that. And if you don't, then you can add in other stuff too. So I've got all my ingredients laid out. I have my recipe handy because I'm the kind of person who needs to have my recipe right in front of me so I don't forget things, especially when it's something with very specific measurements. So I pre-measured everything. We're going to start with, we've got 2 teaspoons of yeast, and you can find this in the store. I like the pre-packaged because it's usually about 2 teaspoons in there. It's already pre-measured. We've got 4.5 teaspoons of sugar, just regular granulated sugar. We've got 1 1/4 cups of warm water. So what I did right before this video is I got some hot water from the tap, and it's nice and warm still. I have 3.5 cups of bread flour. So this is a little different than all-purpose flour. You are going to want to get bread flour for this, or any kind of high gluten flour. And then you do want to keep a little extra handy. I have some behind me because you're going to need it for kneading the dough and for your hands. We've also got 1.5 teaspoons of salt right there. And then again, you can use additional toppings if you'd like. If you want to make an egg wash on the top for the shiny, crisp outside, you can do that. I'll show you how to do that. And then other, additional toppings, you can add poppy seeds or sesame seeds. I'll show you what I'm going to use. I have this mix. It's called Everything But the Bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's. It is delicious if you like an everything bagel. So that is going to be my add-on topping, and I'll show you that as well. So the first step is we're going to take 1/4 cup of warm water. So we started with a 1.5 or 1 1/4 cup. So I'm going to take a 1/2 cup measuring spoon. So we're going to take a 1/2 cup of the warm water, and I'm just going to add it to this cup right here that I've got set aside. You're going to take a 1/2 cup of the warm water and then add in the sugar and the yeast, but don't stir it up. You want it to sit just for 5 minutes. So we're going to add in our sugar, and we're going to add in our yeast. Sometimes the yeast sticks into the container, so you want to just get that right there. So we're not going to stir it, but we are going to smush it down so that the yeast is in the water there. Okay? All right, and then let it sit for 5 minutes. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, so our 5 minutes are up, and as you can see, I'm going to try to show the camera, the yeast and the water have kind of reacted, which is what we want, and we're going to stir it up now. So we want the sugar and the yeast to dissolve in the water here. So we're going to stir it up real good. And then the next step is to take the flour and add it with the salt in a large bowl. So I've got a big bowl right here, the flour and the salt, and just got a spoon. I'm going to stir them up real good, mix them up. And then you want to make a well in the center of the flour, and that just means basically make a little divot. So hopefully you can see this okay. So you're going to basically just make a well. You want high sides on the sides. Hopefully you can see that. It's very bright. Let me see if I can get it. There you go. So you just want a well in the center of your flour and salt mixture. All right. And then we're gonna pour in our yeast and sugar mixture right into the middle there. All right, I'll try to show you that again. So we've got that right in the middle. And then pour a quarter or a third cup of the remaining warm water into the well as well. I'm gonna confuse myself. All right, and then we're gonna mix and stir the rest of the water as needed. So basically, I'm gonna go ahead and flip my page. You're combining the ingredients. You want a moist but firm dough. I'm gonna start with this spoon here to mix it up, but it is gonna get messy and we are gonna use our hands. So if you are the kind of person who wants to wear an apron to do that, I would recommend it. I am not, so I'm just gonna get my hands dirty. All right, and actually I think I might need to add some more of this water because it says to do it as needed, and as you can see, my dough is still pretty dry, so I'm going to keep mixing it, but I think I'm going to add slowly some of the warm water still. So that was just another third cup. And how much you have to add is going to vary on a number of factors, so there is no hard and fast rule on how much you're going to want to add. I'm just going to add a teeny bit more, but you're just going to want to make sure you add enough that you can get a nice firm dough, but something that is still moist. You don't want it super, super sticky and wet, but you do want it wet enough that it all stays together. So we're going to keep kneading the dough until it's nice and mixed. And I think that's just about the right amount of water, that last bit. So my dough is nice and sticky, but it's also very firm. So I'm going to show it to you. So still, it is still sticky, but it sticks together really well. It's not like runny, right? So that is a good step. So the next part, I'm trying to get enough of it off my hands. We are going to flour our countertop and then knead the dough for about 10 minutes. So I did this before the video, but you want to make sure your counter is wiped off and clean before you start this process. Because again, it does get really messy. So I'm going to sprinkle some of my extra flour. Let me get that off enough. Sprinkle some of my extra flour on my countertop. Hopefully you can see that. And then I'm going to take my dough out of the bowl. And it sticks together pretty well, so it is basically coming out of there fairly clean, which is good. I'm going to put my dough down and then set that timer for 10 minutes because I'm going to knead it for 10 minutes. All right, so kneading your dough is just a matter of getting in there and mixing it together. So I do still have a good amount of dough in my hand. I'm going to try to slowly get that off and then also add some flour to my hands to keep it from sticking to me. So this is one of my favorite parts of not just bagel making, but any bread making. Kneading the dough is super fun to me. It's a little messy, but I kind of like that. Some of the flour is going to get mixed up in there, and that's okay. That's good. That's not a problem. You want the end result after 10 minutes of kneading. You want it to be a smooth dough, and you want it to be elastic. And you kind of want to work in a lot of flour, so that's not a bad thing. The bits that are getting in there, that's good. So it's nice and firm and stiff. And as you can tell, it is pretty elastic. Let me move this. Because when I push it down, it kind of springs back up. Hopefully you can see that. So that's good, that's what we want. And I'm gonna have to add more flour throughout to my countertop. That's fine. So I keep a little bowl handy. I would recommend that. All right, and again, I'm just gonna keep doing this for 10 minutes. So I will be back to give you the next steps when that is done. All right, so our 10 minutes are almost up of kneading our dough, and hopefully you enjoyed the process. It's a good way to get out some stress or anxiety. I enjoy this part of the process. All right, so we are almost done. Just got a few more seconds on my timer over there. And the next step is actually, oh, there's the timer. Give me one sec. So the next step, now that we are done with that, is basically to let our dough rise. I'm gonna clean my hands off a bit. You're gonna take a bowl, and I've got one right here. A bowl, and you're gonna want some olive oil, and I use a little, like a little brush. You're gonna wanna brush some olive oil in the bowl just to coat the sides of your bowl. And you kind of want, you don't want a ton, but you want to make sure you have plenty, because the next bit is we are going to, and you want to get it all up the sides, okay? And use a fairly big bowl for this, okay? Is we are going to take our dough, and hopefully it's nice and firm and stiff, and you're going to put it in your bowl, and you want to, let me look at my, yeah, for an hour. So you're going to put it in your bowl with the olive oil, and you also want to like turn it and flip it, because you want the dough to be kind of coated in olive oil too. So if you don't have enough in your bowl, add a little extra. You want your dough to basically be covered and shiny in that olive oil. I'm even going to brush a little bit on there when you're done. And so as you can tell, it doesn't fill the bowl, my dough, but we are going to let it rise for an hour. So that's our next step. You're going to take a damp, clean kitchen towel. So I have a towel that I got wet. And you're going to cover your bowl with it. And then we're going to leave it and let it rise for 1 hour. So I'm going to set my timer for an hour, and then the next step is I'm going to clean up because I made quite a mess, right? So we're going to set the timer for an hour, clean our kitchen, and then when we come back in an hour, we'll be ready to start shaping and forming our bagels. All right, welcome back. So it's been an hour. We've let our dough sit and rise. And so I'm going to open it up, and oh man, look at that. So if you remember how big it was before, it has definitely at least doubled in size. So that's super exciting. We're going to have some bagels soon. All right, so the next step is pretty quick. We're going to punch the dough down, which is basically how it sounds. So we just kind of punch it down. Oh man, and it's super fluffy. Very exciting. All right, so we're gonna do that, and then we let it rest for 10 more minutes. So cover it right back up. 10 more minutes. All right, so we waited 10 more minutes. We're gonna get started on the next thing. I've got a little flour, so I'm gonna put that out onto this surface. I just got a cutting board. A little easier to work with. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our dough out. Still pretty big. Get it on. Oh, I'd have to grab it. There we go. Awesome. And as you can see, it is nice and fluffy. We're going to get it out on this surface here. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're into 8 equal pieces. So I've just got a pizza cutter and I'm just going to cut it kind of like a pizza. Make sure it is 8 pieces, yeah. So cut it right in half. Half again. And then keep cutting until I've got 8 equal-sized, approximately equal-sized pieces. Alright. So, this one I can tell is significantly smaller, so I might just steal a chunk of dough from over here for that one. So I'm going to show you with one, and then we're going to make all 8 of our bagels. So the next thing is we are taking our individually sliced pieces, and we're just going to be making them kind of round. You want to make them very circular. So you want to shape it, make it basically a dough ball. I like to kind of push it back into itself right there. And then I use the countertop a little bit. You don't want to do this for too long, but just enough to make it into a nice dough ball. And then our next step is we're going to make sure we've got some flour on our hands. You're going to push into the middle and make our bagel shape. Awesome. And then you just want to shape it with your hand for a little bit. You want to make, I'm going to just show you how I'm doing this. Basically, you're just working the dough around your hand. And I don't want it to be like a big hole in the middle there. I'm just going to do a little bit until it's about how I like it. And then when that's done, I'm going to put it on this pre-oiled baking sheet. So I did that before. And then I just do that with all 8. Once I've got that done, I'm going to let this rest again for about 10 minutes. And the next step is going to be to boil the bagels, our bagel dough. So I'm going to go ahead and while I leave the bagels to sit for 10 minutes, I'm also just going to get some water started boiling in a nice big pot. So that will be our next step after we have shaped all of our bagels. All right. And they don't have to be perfect, but all 8 bagels. All right, so I've got all 8 of my bagels shaped, and one last time we're going to cover it with our damp kitchen towel and give it 10 more minutes. And then we'll be ready to go. So I'm going to start my water. I've got a big pot because the next step's to boil the bagel, so I want a nice big pot. I'm going to start this boiling because I know it takes a little while for me to get water boiling, and I want that ready to go after the 10 minutes are up. Alright, so we're back. I've got my water boiling. I'll go ahead and take the lid off of that and turn the heat down just a bit. I want to keep it boiling though because I'm going to be boiling all of my bagels. So, I've got all my bagels right here. The next thing, I'm going to grab a slotted spoon, and I'm going to take my bagels, and I'm going to put a few into the boiling water at a time, not all of them, but just a few, and do this in shifts. And you want to boil them for 1 minute, and then flip them over, and then boil for another minute with the other side on top, okay? So, we're just going to go ahead and dunk 3 bagels in here. And set my timer for 1 minute. And they won't really do much, but this is how they cook. The next thing I'm going to do when I pull them out, you can add your toppings right away after you've pulled them out of the water. Or what I'm going to do, and I'll show you how to do it, is add an egg wash. So I've got a scrambled egg here. And the way you add an egg wash is you brush it on the top, and then you add your toppings after that. So I think it's delicious, but again, if you're trying to make vegan bagels, you obviously don't want to do the egg wash. You can just add your toppings right away, right after they're done boiling. So I've got a few more seconds left for this first round. And then when they're done, I'm going to set them right on here. And you can see I kind of get puffier in the water. And I'm so excited for some fresh bagels. All right, there's a minute. I'm going to flip them over. Nice and gentle. When you've got boiling water, you just want to be nice and careful with your work surface. So we'll do another minute on this side, and then yeah, we're going to do it in shifts. So I will set them out here, and then as they're done, and then the last step is we're going to bake them in the oven. So I would go ahead, if you haven't already, go ahead and set your oven to 425 degrees. We'll go ahead and get that started preheating so it's ready to go once we've got all our bagels done with this part of the process. Alright, so that's the first 3 done. Pull them out, let them dry on this sheet. Get my next 3 in here. And set my timer. While waiting, you can also prepare add some oil to a baking sheet. This is what we're going to bake them in when they're done and all ready. Once they get all their toppings. Again, if you don't have your toppings handy, go ahead and grab them. I'm going to use mine with my egg wash once they're done. And these, I'm going to just flip them over so they get dry out a little bit on both sides. Alright, that's 1 minute on that side, flipping them over. 1 more minute. Another option for when you bake is you can use a parchment paper to line your baking sheet. So I actually think I'm going to do that. It's a nice way to keep things from sticking. Alright, in another minute. Pull these out. Alright, they're slowly starting to look like real bagels. Alright, so we've got these last 2. Go ahead and get these going. right, so that's that. I'm going to take these last two out and set them aside. And then I'll turn off my burner and move my pot off the heat. All right, so my next step is to do that egg wash, and then I'm ready to put my bagels on the baking pan. So I'm going to start with the ones that have been sitting out longer, so they've dried off a little bit. But basically, you're going to take the scrambled egg, just one egg scrambled, and your brush, and you're just going to dip it in there and then brush that over top of your bagel. And I'm going to flip them up I want the top side of my bagel to be the prettier side, so you'll see that some are like wonkier looking. I'm going to flip them over so that's now the top of my bagels. So get them covered with this egg wash. This makes it nice and golden brown. Again, not necessary. You can just add the toppings right to the bagels as they're still a little wet from the boiling water. But if you want an egg wash, this is how you'll do it. Just brush it all over the top. Makes it nice and gooey. All right. And then I'm going to take my seasoning. So again, whatever toppings you want to add. Mine is this everything bagel seasoning. I'm just going to add that over top. And I like a lot of it, so I'm going to add a lot of everything seasoning. All right, and they almost look like bagels now, right? So, I'm going to show you a little closer up. This is my bagel dough. Next up, I'm going to put it in the oven. So, I'm going to take that parchment lined baking sheet that I've got and set my bagels on there. And they don't really need to be, they've basically risen as much as they're going to rise. It's not like cookies where you want to have them like spread apart a lot. Or not as much, maybe a little bit, but just want to make sure there's room for all of them. You can use multiple cookie sheets if you need to, multiple baking sheets. Kind of depends on how much space you've got and the size your bagels ended up. I think I'm going to be okay with just the one here, but I am going to make sure there's space. You don't want them to touch, but again, they don't need to be super far apart. There we go, and I think that's going to work for me. So, next step, I'm going to add these. Remember, I preheated my oven already. Let's scoop this back. So I'm just going to add them in here. And then we wait 20 minutes. I'm going to set my timer. And we'll have some bagels. Alright, so it's the moment of truth. The timer just went off and it's time to check our bagels. Oh my goodness, they look so pretty. Alright, they look awesome. So, I'm going to hold them up to the camera. They are beautiful golden brown, just how I want them. I don't know about you, I like when there's not a big hole in the middle of my bagel. But if you want more, you might want to shape them with a little bit more of a hole in the center when you do yours. But these look perfect to me. I'm super excited. So this is the hardest part. I have to wait a few minutes before I can eat them. But I'm going to let them cool off just a little bit, and then I'm going to try one out. All right, and now the best part. We're going to eat our delicious bagel. I'm so excited. I hope you enjoyed earning your fun pack baking at home.